Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Untuk makluman, majlis akan bermula sebentar lagi. Dijemput untuk para hadirin yang berada di ruang pameran untuk memenuhi tempat duduk yang disediakan. Mohon kerjasama para hadirin untuk memadamkan telefon bimbit atau menukarkannya kepada mod senyap. Yang berusaha Puan Arinawati Ayub, Timbalan Ketua Pustakawan Kanan USM. Yang berusaha Puan Radia Banu Jan Muhammad, Timbalan Ketua Pustakawan USM. Yang berusaha Profesor Madya Dr. Teknologi Abdul Hafiz bin Abdul Majid, Pensyarah Kanan Pusat Pengajian Sains Kajihayat, serta warga USM yang dikasihi sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Selamat datang ke Simposium Pemerkasaan Penerbitan Penyelidikan 2022 yang bertemakan kesinambungan legasi kecemerlangan penyelidikan USM. Program ini adalah anjuran bersama Perpustakaan Universiti Sains Malaysia dan Jawatan Kuasa Pemandu Open Science USM. Sesi pada tengah hari ini akan dilakukan secara hybrid. Tuan-puan boleh melayari program ini melalui Facebook Perpustakaan Hamzah Sendut dan YouTube USM Library TV. Objektif utama program ini adalah untuk mengaplikasi konsep pementoran melalui perkongsian kepakaran serta pengalaman oleh top researchers dalam kalangan warga penyelidik USM sendiri kepada para penyelidik lain dalam usaha untuk melahirkan lebih ramai top researchers USM di masa hadapan. Para hadirin sekalian, sebelum kita memulakan sesi pada tengah hari ini, terdapat beberapa pengumuman iaitu: pertama, semua peserta akan diberikan e-sijil selepas mengisi borang penilaian. Kedua, mata CPD akan diberikan kepada staf USM setelah selesai program pada setiap hari. Dan ketiga, sesi soal jawab akan diadakan pada akhir sesi. Mohon kepada peserta yang ingin bertanyakan soalan, boleh bertanya di Facebook Perpustakaan USM atau YouTube USM TV Library. Bagi hadirin yang berada di ruang pameran, anda boleh mengemukakan soalan di mikrofon yang disediakan. Hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, sesi kita pada tengah hari ini adalah bertajuk Collaborating and Securing Research Grant with Industries yang akan dibentangkan oleh Profesor Madya Dr. Teknologi Abdul Hafiz Abdul Majid daripada Pusat Pengajian Sains Kajihayat. Sebelum bermula, izinkan saya untuk membacakan sedikit biodata penceramah kita pada hari ini. Profesor Madya Teknologi Dr. Abdul Hafiz Abdul Majid merupakan seorang ahli akademik dan penyelidik yang mempunyai kepakaran dalam bidang urban dan industrial entomology. Kajian utama beliau adalah memberi tumpuan kepada kawalan serangga perosak di bandar seperti anai-anai, pepijat atau bedbugs, semut, lipas dan produk serangga perosak, serta penggunaan kaedah genetik molekul untuk memahami tingkah laku pembiakan dan susunan genetik populasi serangga perosak. Bagi pencapaian penerbitan, sebanyak 80 artikel telah diterbitkan. Baiklah, sejak 2009, beliau telah didaftarkan oleh Entomology Society of America sebagai Board Certified Entomologist dalam bidang urban dan industrial entomology. Beliau juga telah berkhidmat sebagai ahli kehormat Malaysian Pest Control Association sejak 2015. Dr. Hafiz telah banyak menerima anugerah di peringkat antarabangsa dan kebangsaan selain menerima beberapa anugerah penyelidikan yang diiktiraf oleh industri kawalan perosak. Beliau juga telah mengadakan projek Geran Pemindahan Ilmu di bawah Geran Knowledge Transfer Industry, KTP Industry, di mana kolaborasi industri bagi projek ini adalah syarikat terkemuka Instax. Baiklah, tanpa melengahkan masa, saya ingin mempersilakan penceramah kita Dr. Hafiz untuk memulakan sesi pada hari ini. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih Puan Pengurusi Majlis. Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Thank you for inviting me for a short presentation. Just a sharing because different field, because I'm a entomology field, so it might be some of the approach might be different in different field, but I'm just sharing what have been through for the past 10 years. So this year, my service in USM is 10 years. So basically, I'm sharing the early stage on how to get engaged with industry, to get the confidence with them, and then at the later stage, obtaining research project or grant, and then the continuation, how you maintain research project with them, and for incoming years collaborations. So basically, just introductions between academia and industry. So basically, as academia, myself as an academia in the academia world, so basically our research are set by ourselves priorities or by the university itself. And then we look for grant as an early stage when I'm USM in 2012. It's important during that first year, 2 years to obtain a risk grant to start off your lab or to start off your research. So it's very important. And then publication. So if you have a research grant, then it means that you can conduct research and it's easier for you to get something out for publication. And some of these are serendipity. That means that it might be by chances or by something that you find throughout the research and you need to expose it to the public. And some of this information you transfer at the early stage as academia. But for industry, these research priorities are set by the management. So some of the company, when I approach them, when I propose some ideas, they might not accept it because those particular ideas are not their priorities by the management. So we need to get the correct audience or the correct point for them to elaborate more on that particular thing. And then importantly also industry, when we approach and connecting research with industry, main thing is they're looking for profit. They don't want to do any investment. At the end of the day, they will lose money and they won't even gain any profits. So that means they are profit seeking. And then they are proprietary. That means that anything that they do, their product, that means that they need to introduce a new product in the market, is belong to them. And then it will add value to the product. That means that anything that been found in the research, they will not transfer it yet. They will transfer everything when they obtain more information, some additional data that can benefit to the industry, then they will transfer it. So this is difference between the academia and the industry itself. So again, why important that we need to have university and industry engagement? So first thing is we want to have a knowledge transfer. Sometimes myself, when we do research either in lab or field, we think that we do something novel, but in that sense, sometimes it's not something new. It's been conducted long time ago. Or it's something new that you've done, but it's not been acknowledged by people. So that means that you need to transfer things that you conducted in the lab, any findings that you found in the field, you have to transfer it to somebody, especially for the stakeholders. For example, I'm in the urban enterprise program, so that means that you need to meet the niche and the criteria that they want, so that you need to transfer. For example, you find new method in controlling termite. For example, a novel way you find in the lab, but you need to get this out. So you need to transfer it to a correct people, and they will elaborate more, and they can fund it more on that particular project and so on. So again, then funding. Yes, because we need to collaborate with industry, we need funding. Because excuse me, if you depend a lot on ministry grants, there's a lot of competitions. I mean, many grants, so there's a lot of competitions. So other way out of it is that you obtain a collaboration with industry. So this is one way you can obtain additional funding that keep the lab or keep the research cooking throughout these years. And then also exposure. So that means that sometimes what I found during the past 10 years, they have the technologies, but they don't have people who want to test their product with the current method or the application. So that means you need to be exposed on how this particular process can be done. So that means that this cooperation can be done by direct funding through research. That means that they give either as a research grant project or exchange program. So that means that the academia go to the industry, get some exposure, what they have been done in the field. And then some of it can be done along the way as a consultation. So this is just introduction. Later on, I'll go a little bit by the steps. And then importantly also is for commercialization. At the end of the day, whatever you do, the finding is that it need to be commercialized. And especially for a company, if you are collaborating with the industry, this particular product, the new product, they need to launch the new product in the market. So that means in this particular industry, sometimes there are competitions among themselves. So it need to be commercialized. So again, it's important, as I mentioned earlier, knowledge transfer. That means you are bridging the gap. So there's a lot of gap. For example, I'm an urban entomologist by trade. Later on, I will define what's urban entomology. So that means there's a lot of gap, things that you found a better way in managing any insects infestation, but it not been bridged together. So that means the industry have their own priority. We have our own sets of goals, and we have the fundamental findings, but there's a gap. So we need to bridge between these two categories. And then field research, not just about lab, field. From my experience, when we did something new method, the field, we can save time, money, and cost, but that thing doesn't get to the industry. There's a gap. Because sometimes you have to understand the industry, they're looking for profits. If you are doing something that reduce their profits, keuntungan, so that means they will think 50-50. So that means that whatever it is all about the profits that they're making at the later stage. And then knowledge management, that means that the expertise and experience that obtained by the researcher need to be transferred. And this means that whatever the latest technology that available in the market and the things that we found in the lab and field need to be bridged together. So this is a very important scenario. So again, a starting point, so what's the factor that influence the academia and industry collaboration? So first thing, during my early years in USM, when I finished my PhD in 2012 and joined USM in December 2012, so that means I'm already 10 years here. That means that encouragement is very important. Galakkan, either from your seniors, from your peers, is very important to start off things that need to be started off at the lab. And then importantly is that if you want to start something also, you need to have money. That means a research grant, a fundamental grant, or something that startup grant. So USM have short-term grant that can be a starting point to start. But from my experience, when I started USM, it took me about a year and a half to obtain my first short-term grant. So that that doesn't mean that you need to stop there. You might need to spend some of your own money pocket to start off. So that's what happened to me during my first year. I spent like monthly like 500 ringgit, just spending my own money to start my own research, especially when you have final year project students. So that means from there you can move forward. So that means the startup grant is very important. Depend on university. Back in when I was in conducted my PhD in USA, most of the new faculty member, when they not obtain their new hire, they will give like a startup grant. That means in the 5 years, you need to fulfill your tenure with all the research output and so on, but they park the money there. So that means that in the 5 years, you need to do or produce something at the end. And then research program, for example, promote talents, because some talents, they are shy or not been exposed. So that means that some of these factor will influence and so on. And then programs, some programs that can promote some of the talent development either in the lab or in the field that can conducted either by the researcher or academia that can be bridging between the academia and the industry collaborations itself. So because my field is urban entomology, so basically my industry partners, they are pest control industry. So the audience here might have different industry partner or different collaborator, but my field, because I'm a urban entomology, I work with insects that are pests. Later we'll look about it. So basically all my collaborators are from the pest control industry. So what are pest control industry? So they are manufacturer that produce chemicals, for example, like the pesticide, insecticide, household products. I think all of us have aerosol product to kill mosquito or at least cockroaches. At least one of you must been bitten by insects, mosquito. Kalau tak kena gigit memang tak sah lah. So at least you've been bitten by mosquito. So we have these household products to control or to kill the insects that might be harmful to human health and also to maybe to our building structure and so on. So again, pest management product. So that's a lot, not just about pesticide, insecticide, household product. There are some other technology that related to managing pests, for example, monitoring insects that are in our building, in our home, and so on. And also there are companies, when we talk about pest control industry, a company that provides services. I think USM or library might hire PCO, pest control operator, come and spray, do a general spraying for ants or maybe cockroaches. So they provide services, even bird and rodent control, mosquito control, termites. So actually for commercial building, household buildings, termites infestation is sometimes can cause a lot of serious damages and can cost a lot of money to repair it. And then also some of these pest control operator, they have fumigation license. So that means when they have a fumigation license, they can control incoming product. For example, we import grains from overseas, so they have to stop at the deck, and then we have to fumigate before this particular product bring into our pot, because we might introduce a new insects that might become a pest in our environment itself. So if you look generally, so this is source obtained from the internet itself. So that means the pest control industry is one of the big market. So this is focusing just on the North America. So it is a segment that contribute about 45% of the growth of this particular industry. So it's quite big because insects are everywhere. You are living with insects, so we cannot avoid insects. Anywhere you walk, you will see some ants crawling, even mosquito flying at night. So you will see. So it's a big aspect of business of the pest control industry, and there's a lot of big key player in the industry, in this particular industry. So if you look here, the market segmentation by is mostly focusing on the residential and commercial building. So our homes, yes, we have insects all the time, and then commercial buildings like hospital, even university. So it's a very important business segment in the pest control industry. So before I go further, so I talk about pests. So in the pest control industry, the one that we want to kill is the pest. Pest is defined that something can cause harm or impact indirectly to our health, or even it can impact our building structure. For example, like termite, when they start eating our building, after 2-3 months, we might see that our kitchen cabinet fall off due to the termite eaten the cabinet. Or some of us might have dengue. Back in 2017, saya pernah kena dengue. So it's caused by the mosquito, the Aedes. So it can cause a lot of harmful and so on. So a pest not just about insects, it can be other organism like rats, rodents, even ourselves. For example, when I was in the university, when I was a student, I have a roommate that always disturb me. So it's a pest. Asyik mengganggu saya. So it's can categorize a pest. So that means that when you spray, dia matilah. So that means in this pest, that's something that can cause harmful, either indirectly to our health or our living properties that we stay. So these are unwanted things that we don't want in our life, that interference with our livelihood, with our living. So again, most of the sector of the pest control industry focus on urban setting. That means urban setting is not about big cities, but commercial building, our residential. So that means insects that always there, termites, mosquito, yes, even cockroaches. I think cockroaches is everywhere. You can open the sewer, you can see a lot of cockroaches, and it's a related arthropod. So that means that it's invaded our life and it can disrupt our properties. And also there are some other insects like here that can cause harmful to other things. For example, like store product pests. Some beetles, kumbang, it can be a pest to our grains like rice, barley, and many more. So it's very important. One aspect of the pest control industry is under aspect of medical important. So I mean that under aspect of entomology. So entomology is study of insects. For example, like vector. So vector and vector-borne disease. That means that vector are insects that can transmit disease either directly or indirectly. Some example like mosquito. Yes, we heard about Aedes, about dengue all the time. And then fleas, even bed bugs that can cause harmful to our health. And there's a lot of other group of insects that are vector important. So that means that it can transmit the disease. And not all insects are vector. Vector only when they can transmit the disease, they are classified as a vector. So again, a vector, it can rule out as a mechanical vector. So for example, like cockroaches. For example, this morning you are having a breakfast, nasi lemak, for example. Later today, you have a stomachache, you have diarrhea. It might be caused by the cockroaches. Maybe when you buy your nasi lemak, there's a cockroaches crawling out from the sewer, and then it crawls into your food, and then you eat it, and you feel it delicious. Might be got contaminated with bacteria and many things. So that means it's a mechanical vector. Another one is biological vector. That means that the disease is already inside the insects. So when it bites you, it will transmit a viruses, and it start to multiple inside your body. So this is why this pest control industry segment is very big. So what the problem this pest cause? So there's a lot. Health problem. Like cockroaches I mentioned earlier, they can transmit disease indirectly. They eat a lot of dirty stuff. They crawl out from a sewer system, and then they go to your food, and they can contaminate the food. So you have a bacteria spread out. And some of these insects also, they cause allergies. For example, you have a lot of cockroaches in your home due to your cleanliness, how you clean your house, your room, and so on. And also, it can trigger asthma. Some aspect, it can cause asthma. And some of these pests, they can cause a lot of damages, kerosakan, either directly or indirectly without we noticing it. So, for example, like rats, they eat warriors. Even termite, they eat and feed building structure. A lot of buildings that I got connected inspection, some building that been eaten by termite is quite serious. And to repair, it's a lot of money. For example, I renovate my kitchen cabinet. I renovate the whole kitchen, and I put a new kitchen cabinet. It costs about almost 10,000 for full set kitchen cabinet, full. Imagine that if termite eat that cabinet, I will lose 10,000 ringgit. Yeah. Because you need to replace a new one when it been totally eat the furnitures or the kitchen cabinet. So again, you will have a lot of problem. So that's why a pest control industry is a big sector. So again, when we talk about pests, a lot of things we're talking about pesticides, insecticides. So this is to control these pests that can cause harm to our health or even damages our building structure. So that's a lot of examples. So that means that it's a poison and designed to kill it or to control it. So I'm not going to go further, just to highlight it, to introduce what are the pest control industry and so on. And this product, for example, like the depend on the formulation. So again, and then also it depends also on environment. For example, if you are treating the area with the insecticide, it's a chemical, and then there's a rain, so it wash away all the chemical away. So there's a leaching of the pesticide. So it will not work in good sense. Even some pests have developed resistance, and the workplace and many other factors. So there's a lot of factors that influence the air, the wind that may be move away the residual and so on. So if these particular things have been taken care and the insects the pests do not die, that means they have developed resistance, insecticide resistance, keritangan terhadap racun. So that means you kill it with a particular insecticide, it will not kill. You are treating your building to prevent any termite infestation, but it doesn't work. So there's a lot of factors. So this is where the niche, later I will talk about some example, how you want to approach the pest control industry, because they are developing a new product to overcome resistance issue, insecticide resistance. So this is a way to engage with the industry itself. So again, what's the early stage in engaging the industry? So again, it's back to your field of expertise. For example, I'm an urban entomologist. So if I want to do something about drug, of course, it's not my field. Jauh sekali, tak sama. So that means that you need to recognize the field that you are expert. It's very important because if you do something out of your league, out of your field, then it's quite hard and challenging. So that means that you need to recognize your expertise. For example, I'm a board certified entomologist since 2009. So that means that that signature, when they request for report and I put the title board certified entomologist, laku. I mean, it's sell-off point in that particular thing. So that's why important, not just about your field of expertise, your education, the background, but also the certification that you might obtain along the way, because it's very important and so on. So again, the attitude is very important. Sometimes when you approach industry, attitude really matters. Whatever we do, attitude is very matters. Need to have a positive attitude. You need to be consistency, because at early stage when I approach civil industry, sometimes there's a how to say, not always there. That means that you need to stay positive, need to be consistent and perseverant. And then importantly is motivation. Sometimes when you got rejected, your motivation is down. So that means the motivation need to be always high, even though there's no supporting, but the motivation need to be high to keep you going, to engage with the industry people. So again, what the early steps? So again, importantly is, as I mentioned earlier, is your expertise. For example, I'm an urban entomologist. What is the missing gap in my field? That's the point, because we don't want to do something that, how to say it, if in Bahasa Malaysia we call shock sendiri. So that means that you need to find the gap. For example, I obtained my PhD in United States. Some of this research in the United States, in this particular field is already advanced, very high. But when I come back to Malaysia, the things that have been done in United States have not been applied in Malaysia. So this is the gap, something that can be, how to say it, obtain it from overseas, the things that you learn, it can be applied. And what are the missing? And again, sometimes things that you want to bring from overseas, sometimes it cannot be implemented in Malaysia. Because I stay in Nebraska for 4.5 years in United States. It's a very cool winter. That means that at some time at the winter, it can reach up to negative 25 Celsius. That means that if your hair is wet, you go out, your hair become ice. So that means it's very cold. So that means that in Malaysia, we have a lot of rain. So it's different. So that means if you want to study about chemicals, about insecticide, you need to make sure that you are in different environments. So what are the gaps? So this is very important. Later on, next slide, I will show some example of how I did that, just to share. And then importantly is the research question. So if you know the gap, what are the question or the research question are you looking at? Either you want to solve the problem that currently here, short term or for long term. And of course, you want to have it as long term. But sometimes short term solution is very important, because in pest control industry, you want both way. If you have a long term, yes, it's good. But sometimes they want to have a short term because that particular problem is there and it's right now. If you don't control and you don't manage, then it will cost their business. So it's very important. And then the applicability. Sometimes you want to apply it, you want to exploit it, it's not applicable. Like I mentioned earlier, the different environment. That particular research or that particular approach is good for 4-season country, but not in Malaysia because it's hot and humid and there's a lot of rain. And then the cost. How much is it? Is it feasible or not feasible? Sometimes when at the early stage, you don't have all the money. Sebab pensyarah ni bila masuklah, bila jadi pensyarah, kita miskin. Miskin. Kita tak ada duit. So that means that you need to evaluate yourself. Can I do this without any funding at the early stage? Because you want to find out something that later on can contribute to this particular industry. So you can conduct a small lab scale and small field trial. But make sure that whatever that you do, either it's small or either it's small in lab scale or field, you need to contribute that particular research question again. Do not do just to do research. That means that at the end of the day, it impact the society or even the industry itself. And then you need to have the data validate. So this is very important. So at my early stage, I will share later on, is that even though the data is small, but you need to make it big. That means that you need to publish. Whatever it is, you need to publish and make sure that this data is published and you can have it applicable. That means that when the pest control industry try to look at it, the data is there. So that means they will explore from the small scale, or they say, okay, this is a good data. Why don't we explore it? Because it's good. Why don't you explore it and we pump some money? So you need to have that thing published, because when it's published, your result is being validated by peer reviewers, by external reviewers, and so on. And then importantly is that you need to present. So in early stage, sometimes even a small data, but it meaningful impact, you need to present. Either conference or anything that related to that particular field, and you need to exploit more. And then also you can sometimes make appointment. What I did is earlier, make appointment, drive yourself to that particular people and present. I have this and so on. So sometimes it takes quite a while. That means that it doesn't happen in a year or 2 years. It takes some process for that to happen. So that means that you will obtain it at early stage. So this is some scenario, some picture that I'm sharing. So at early stage also, I obtained the knowledge transfer program. So some of the knowledge can be transferred to the big industry, key player of producing insecticide, and they train their worker, and their worker will apply this particular approach. So it's something that is bridging the gap, knowledge transfer, and at the end of the day, they will exploit that particular method and so on. So some example here that I would like to share is about termiticide. Because my main expertise is urban entomology, I work a lot of research in termite, bedbug, all those urban insect pests. So that means our understanding of Malaysian environment. Because in US, I've been exposed, trained with termiticide, half-life. How long this termiticide lasts? For example, you are spraying insecticide in this building to control crawling cockroaches or crawling insects. How long that chemical lasts? Nobody can answer that here. I mean, in Malaysia scenario. So that means if you spray today, it is in field application, do we need to retreat again every other day or every month and so on? For example, termiticide is related with soil. You put the chemical inside the soil. But again, you have to understand, in the soil, there's a lot of factors. There's a microbial degradation, there's a leaching, we have a lot of rain, we have a lot of sun that can degrade all this material. So again, how long this particular termiticide can last in the soil? So again, there's a lot of things, because the scenario is that some product, they said it can last up to 7 years, can last up to 10 years, or last up to 20 years. So is that true? Or is just a selling point? So that means that the supplier, they want to give a warranty period. So that means if you do any termite control management, if you pest control operator to control termite infestation, after 2 years, if there are termite infestation, you get a free treatment or not. So this is a warranty by the product. And the guarantee is by the PCO, the pest control operator who done the job. They need to give a guarantee, jaminan. Tiada anak-anak. So again, how the understanding, there's a lot of big gap there. So again, a lot of things. So I start off with this particular small project, some important termiticide that been used by the pest control industry in the market. So then publish that data, expose it, and then present. So a lot of people will come later on, oh, I have a new product. I want to test how long this can last, because I want to put a warranty or guarantee on it, because it's very important. And there's other important things also. So that means we see a lot of this advertisement. That means kill and eliminate termite in the fastest way. Protect your home. So that means there's a lot of question there. Not just about selling off the point, but again, want to help the industry. So when they want to do a registration purpose, later on I will talk, a product, they need to have this particular data, because they want to give a warranty to the customer. Their product can last for this certain years and so on. And a lot of things, practical things. For example, when you talk about termiticides, insecticides, racun is a chemical, it relates with environment. Myself, when we work with termite, termiticide, we want that particular termiticide to last long. That's the point. And we don't want to invest 2,000 ringgit or 3,000 ringgit to control our termite infestation at home. And then after 1 year, we have termite infestation again. So that means that long term is good. But that's a good and bad. Depend on your perspective. Like for example, I'm an entomologist. Long protection is good. But for environmentalists, might be not good. Because you have the chemical residue there for a long time. So it's not good. So that means that you have to need to be neutral and need to be contradict between the two. So that means what are the best way to give that warranty and so on. So this is things that can be approached and so on. So again, some example. For example, if you put the chemical there, if you see the first picture there, you place it in the barrel in the morning, and then they are left over. Can this leftover termiticide, insecticide, can it be used again next month? Yeah, because if you can use it, you save money for a company. But again, does the AI still there or not? So this is something that need to be explored. So that's what I did at early stage. That means that, okay, let's have this chemical, termiticide, in the barrel. We leave it for several days in different environment. Let's see, is it still work in controlling pests? For example, you're talking about termites, ants, and other pests. Can it work, or can it still effective? So that's the question, because this is from experience, because they will still keep the leftover termiticide or leftover chemicals and use it again. So how long it lasts? And then if you put it behind the truck, for example, the last picture there, and you expose to sunlight, can it still work or not? So this information quite surprising. That means that some early findings, we found that the maximum it can stay after you open the bottle, you mix, up to 2 weeks. After that, you need to use a new mixture. You cannot reuse the old termiticide that have been mixed. So this is things at the early stage to meet the gap, whatever the gap that need to be done. So again, how long this inside and can last in the environment. So this is all the research question. So again, from there, with the small data set that did in the field, so that means that I remember that I spent 1,000 ringgit, my own duit. I think my wife keeps saying, why duit asyik tak cukup? Bila kerja, and that first year working, and when you are DS45, your salary is like 3,000 plus, tak banyak. So ada loan rumah, I mean, it just try to shuffle that thing, and then you spend your own pocket money for the early research. So I remember that I spent like almost 500 to 1,000 spent just to get that starting point. So that means that when that particular data set show some other company or other industry partners related to the chemicals, they want to register their new product. They have a new formulation. So that means now some of this purpose of registration purpose, they need to have that data for registration. If not, they cannot sell this. Kalau tak ada data tu, that means that they can sell underground. But to sell it correctly, they need to register. So that means they require the local data. So that's why important. And then they need to register this product when we're talking about pesticide, insecticide. This product need to register with the pesticide board. And this is for marketing purpose. So when it's registered, you can sell off the product and so on. So that means the half-life data that I conducted is very important because it provides the warranty, how they want to place the warranty to the product. Okay, this new product already been registered, we have the data, we can sell off, the maximum is 3 years warranty. More than that, it's not true. It based on the data. Because sometimes when you sell off too much and it doesn't contradict with the data, then it's something, it will be a problem at a later stage because the customer complain. Because right now, customer always right. So when they complain, you said 2 years, but after 6 months, we have a new infestation. So again, they will lose the business. I mean, the product, customer will look for a new product or find an alternative way and so on. So it means that, other than that, also they want a bioassay data. For new product, chemical like termiticide, insecticide, and many more, the bioassay data is important because they want to know the toxicity, how long the insects will die when it's exposed to that particular chemical and so on. The efficacy, how long is it? And then at the end of the day is that the performance of that particular product, the efficacy data, because it will use it for sales, it will use it for promote, and it's an income generation for the industry itself. So that means they want to sell off the product itself. So that's the starting point. So how you engage the trust and the partnership. So I'm sharing based on my experience. Different field, different people might have different experience. I'm just sharing my short experience in this 9-10 years in USM. Is that importantly is that you need to trust. You need to have a trust with whatever that you're working on. It's very important. And this trust you cannot force. For example, I have this data, I approach, oh, we need to do this. It's very important. It cannot be forced. It cannot be forced because you need to develop mutual trust between both parties. And then importantly is that there's a tangibility between the two. And whatever that I did at the early stages, you gave a free consultation. So that early stage, so that I'm asking you, saying here is that consultation is like free bono at the first early engagement. Do not ask, oh, you want my advice? You need to pay. So the early stage when you want to do, you give free advice. Sometimes they have a problem somewhere. Okay, I will come and see. So you use your own money to travel, go there and look at the problem to solve. So you give a consultation free at the early stage because you want to build the trust. It's very important. So that means that early stage you have to spend a lot of money and material, your own money, because you want to develop that trust. And also don't ask any service fee. Right. If you go out with them, buy their lunch. Keluar makan dah sembang. And just to make the conversation, how to make the mutual trust and so on. So again, after those have been done, then later we can talk about if there's a project need to be explored, then we can talk about the money, about the investment of the project or the research and many more. So this is the early stage, the trust and so on. So again, once you have built the trust with the industry, because it's quite hard, because some industry, they have some, how to say, the trust is not there. So once you build the trust, they trust you, it'll be a long mutual trust for a long time. So once you have built that partnership and trust, then you can easily secure some research project. So that means this involves costing. So that means that costing is very important because when we work with industry, you need to see their budget, because some of the years they have a lot of budget, some of the budget they are not much. So you have to work within the budget. But importantly is that you don't stress, because I have experience when I have a project when I have need a lot to travel, especially to other part of Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak. So that means the flight is very expensive. Sometimes the flight cost also not cheap. Certain days is cheap, certain days is quite cost. So it gives you a headache. So that means that you need to work with the cost that need to involve all those particular things. If you want to talk about this part, it will take another 1 hour. So we can build from there. But importantly is don't be too pricey. Jangan letak, 100,000 ringgit for starting point. No. You need to work out and make some 10% margin. That means that margin you have to pay your materials, that your research assistant, your equipment, your consumable. So that at least jangan terlalu sangat gopo. I want 100,000. If not, it will not work. So because you build the early trust and so on. And importantly is that you need to make sure you have a research assistants or students. For example, like lecturer, if you want to do by yourself, it's quite hard. My early days, when I kick off, I did myself, and I have my final year project student. So that beginning of the early stage, saya ada banyak FYP student. That stage like 8, so starting point to build. So I built a research with the FYP student that specifically to answer that small question first. So that small data will help you to publish and to present, and people will come and look for it. And then equipment. Do you have the equipment to do in it? Or you need to buy. So it's involved cost. Or is it you need to rental it? The facilities. For example, when I want to do that half-life, do I have the area? Big area, not that big, to set up the plot, the study plot. So that's very important. So if you don't have that study plot, if you take the project, then it's quite hard to do. So you need to see the feasible of the facilities. Time frame. Again, if the company want to register your new product, time frame is very important. Usually they want to launch it within a year. So that means you have to keep in mind time. It's a essential because they want to launch this product. For example, you obtain a secure research project with industry or the funding from industry. They want to launch it December next year. So that means that you have about a year. So that means you need to work. Because I've been experienced, they keep pushing. After 1 week, they keep calling, how the data? How's the data? Yes, we understand it's very important, but we need to keep at their expectation. They expect like this, you have to follow them because you want to keep continuation at the end of the day. So if you don't meet the expectation, they don't want to work with you anymore. So you have to work with the expectation. And sometimes the research assistant or your student need to understand that also. Because when we work with industry, it's all about business. It's all about the money. And then data reporting, no delay. Sometimes they want ad hoc data. For example, they know that I have done this particular part and like 2 days ago, they want the data. So you need to be alert. Okay, once your assistant have conducted, obtain the raw data and look at it directly. Do not delay because sometimes they want it ad hoc. Why? Sometimes they need to present that information right away to their regional manager, to their director, and so on. So we need to keep alert on that. And then early detection. Sometimes when you do this project, there's an error. So do not wait. Detect it early. Because when you work in industry, they don't want any error. If there's an error, detect early. If not, it's too late. Because you don't want to jeopardize the big good collaboration with the industry and so on. So again, next step is how to maintain the collaboration. Once you early step engage the industry, the middle process, and then how you maintain the collaboration. So again, there's a lot of things. For example, some findings are good. They're happy. Or they will launch it. They will introduce it. They will sell and so on. But some data, so-so. Yang so-so ni, the so-so one, you need to be careful. Or the one that are negative data, because as a researcher, we need to be neutral. That's why importantly, because in the pest control industry, they look for a neutral researcher. That means that they don't want somebody that aside to their product or to one company. You need to be neutral. It's very important to keep the information discreet from a competitor, from other competitor within among themselves. So I mean, if the data is sometimes negative or so, sometimes it can lead both ways. Sometimes it can lead to additional funding to further out, to find more. Oh, this is an error, we need to find out more. So it will lead to more funding to explore that so-so data or that negative data, what happened. So it will explore more. So this data is not good, we need to explore more and so on. But it need to have certain way. Not just, oh, we need to repeat and so on. There's a way on doing that and so on. And it will lead to a new project. Or they will terminate it. I have experience when this product is bad, okay, we don't want to explore anymore in this chemical and that product is not launched. Because, yes, we have repeat. The scenario is that when the data is not good, you need to repeat again. Even though you do a bioassay, you have the replicates, everything good, you have the control, you have a good environment, but sometimes the data still skewed. So that means you have to repeat. So keep in mind, the industry, the data is very important and so on. And then communication, important to discuss. Avoid conflict. From my experience is avoid conflict with the industry. Sometimes you not agree with our industry partner, avoid it. Do not disturb because they are the boss. They're the funders for the project. We try to go around it and discuss it and so on. So that means that you need to be neutral and don't choose side. And then try to outreach. That means that from there, promote the product. That means that as a researcher, I need to be neutral. I cannot promote one product. I just give, basically, if I produce the information, I'll just give the AI and the formulation, not the product. If not, it's a bias. So that means you need to be neutral and do not discredit any information out and so on. So that means that the data they obtain, they will promote. And then talent development. That means that sometime when you have a research assistant or student that help you out, that student later on will work with the company. So this is a good talent development because the student or the research assistant or the research officer that you hired, they have been exposed with this particular product, this particular technology, they will hire indirectly. Why they have to choose somebody that outside the range? Because it's their product. So they will hire indirectly. So that's one a good point. So that means that you have a product out from the lab that can contribute as a job prospect to their company and so on. And then also from that particular research assistant or student, they have a hands-on training. That means they have been exposed how to conduct that particular chemical, they have done experiment or research with the product, so it's a good thing. So that means, and from there also, you need to do training. So that means that it doesn't stop there. You need to provide training. For example, this particular product, we can provide training how to do a correct way in managing termite infestation, a novel way, innovative way. So that means you do a training, you give talk under their sponsorship or so on. So that means, but importantly, you need to be neutral, but you spoke within the data and the information that need to be available to the public. So, and then also, sometimes it will lead to additional innovation. So again, about this innovation and pattern, I think Dr. Muaz will talk later today from CIC. But we have to be careful because when we work with industry, this product, whatever the information is belong to them. We have no hands to even publish the data. I will talk about the challenging, or even innovate or patent if it's been funded by them. So it's a no-no. So again, we need to be careful when you sign MOA with them, the research agreement, you have to double check with them and so on. So again, what are the challenges? Data do not meet the expectation. It happened many times. It doesn't meet the expectation, you repeat again. So even before PKP, last time also, there's some data you need to redo. During the PKP time, that's a headache. Lab lockdown, only one person at a time in the lab. So you have a lot of research project and you need to repeat again. Tak boleh masuk lab. Industry, they give you money, they expect you to deliver the data on time. Doesn't matter whatever the scenario is. That's why that's sometimes the challenges. So that's my experience during the PKP time, during the lockdown, during the PKP last 2 years. Sometimes we have 3 or 4 research projects with industry that running at the same time, and then we cannot go to the lab, or one person to go to the lab. So how we want to have this data out to present or for them to have it? So this is a scenario that we have to work out. So this is something that I just shared with you. So that means some data, if doesn't meet the expectation, you need to repeat. So this is some challenges. So that means you need to work out with it. And then because of this, sometimes it will cause delay in launching the product. So if the data is not good, so we have to tweak the formulation, we have to tweak the concentration, so it will delay the launching. So that's why they have a deadline. So we need to meet the deadline. So people who work with industry, they know the deadline is very important to them. So that's why when you do research, sometimes we expect it to be done in 1 month, sometimes it'll get up to 2-3 months out of the timeline. And also the secrecy, the challenge is because some information is a secret. You cannot release out to other competitor or to other industry partner because it's a secret. So that means that when it's a secret, you cannot publish. Because the scenario is that when we did the research, we need to publish. For example, like FRGS grant, you need to have 2 ISI journals, 1 postgrad student or 1 PhD student. But industry, they just want the data. So that means that please do not publish the data. Or there are certain years, after 10 years, the product has been launched, after 5-10 years, then it's okay to publish. But you have to look back at the agreement and so on. So that means that that's the challenges, because as an academia, you need to publish. And then also you need to document it and present it. But there are limitations from there. So you need to understand when working with industry, this I'm talking about my prospect industry, that means that those information cannot be shared until approval has been given to be shared and so on. So again, sometimes there's a conflict of interest. Some of the objective, for example, when we have the data, this is the objective data. You want to test this product, this is to be said, not to be, it need to be granted warranty maximum up to 3 years. No more than that, cannot. So that means there's some conflict. For them, they want it 3 years to 5 years, because if not, the business revenue doesn't work out that way. So that means that the objective lost along the way. And then as I mentioned earlier again, investigator, the researcher conflict interest, because when you collect data, you want to share the result and you need to publish it. But in sometime from my experience, sometimes you spend your own money also because sometimes indirect costs that involved. For example, during the PKP time, and you cannot go to the lab. All those we want to be safe. So it costs you the money, the funding, and also the result. So that means that they are looking for that thing. So that means there's a conflict during that time that need to overcome. And then some other conflict, for example, the equipments. Sometimes you have to share the equipment not available in lab. So you need to make sure that when you share the equipment, when you want to do the conducted, you doesn't take other people time that using the equipment and so on. And some of this information also sometimes you want to share your colleagues also cannot be shared because you are signed by the NDA. Some project have NDA, you cannot share. So you have to keep yourself, even though you're busting in your stomach, you want to tell. So you need to keep it discreet. And then exchange of research materials cannot be done. There are some limitation there, depend. So sometimes when it's been, product is launched and so on, then you can proceed with the next step. So this is some of the challenges there. So to conclude, that's a 5-minute notice. So I'm at the end of my slide again. So importantly is that when you work with industry like mine, working with the pest control industry, it's very important to recognize the value because it's just not for short term, because it's for long term. Because I work with one of the industry company, people changing, even their manager changing, their boss changing. So that means that last time I worked with this boss, but after 2 years, new boss. So that means that you need to recognize the value, not just for short term, but for long term. And it's important is for long term investment, not just funding just for that one time, but you want to keep additional funding. So that means after you have finished your one project, yes, you want to do a new project with the industry partner. So again, sometimes from the output that you conducted the research industry, this will lead you to another novel idea to pursue it, to continuation with the industry, the next project and so on. And then it will create more collaboration. So that means that it's something like envy. One company, for example, they work with you, another one they will envy, oh, they have done this project with Dr. Hafiz. It's good data and they launch and so on. Oh, why don't we approach him? And we did the same thing because we also want to launch. So that means you get more collaboration, but at the same time you need to be neutral because this is all our friends and so on. And then motivation, because there's up and down when doing these particular things, there's up and down. And then importantly is perseverance is very important. That means that you need to make sure that you keep motivated and keep going, whatever the challenges along the way. And to end my presentation, my sharing, just to acknowledge all these years, all these past 10 years who funding the lab. My students, all of my students, except international students, they all been have allowance. They have allowance from the research project, from the research grant that funded by the industry. So it's very important also because students, when they want to study, they do need some allowance for their daily living, beli makanan and so on, because it's quite hard also nowadays to obtain some scholarship and so on. So I would like to acknowledge them for all throughout these 10 years in mutual and continual collaboration with me. And also I would like to thank UST, USM, RCMO, university management, the schools that always are supportive, keep going and to keep continuing your research. So that means that importantly, the key message is that keep a mutual friend with the industry to keep continuing with the research project because there's up and down along the way. I think that's all. Thank you.
Ribuan terima kasih diucapkan kepada Dr. Hafiz di atas perkongsian yang sangat menarik dan berinformasi. Saya percaya kita telah banyak mendapat ilmu yang bermanfaat daripada sesi ini. Para hadirin sekalian, seterusnya kita akan ke sesi soal jawab Dipersilakan kepada para hadirin yang berada di ruang pameran untuk bertanyakan soalan. Dia boleh menggunakan mikrofon yang disediakan. Boleh ke mikrofon. Jadi sila perkenalkan diri, school dari mana dan soalan.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hafiz, for your insightful sharing. I'm Ridwan from School of Chemical Sciences. I do have a few questions because I've been dealing with the industrial collaborations previously. And then it seems that it's not always win-win situation, and it will be always win-losing situation, and we are always being the loser because we cannot simply publish whatever we that would be our core business, because as a researcher we always want to publish. So, and then secondly, we could not take the ownership because we can file the patents, but the patent belongs to the company.
Correct.
So what is your suggestion or opinions so that we can have this kind of a bit winning to us? I mean, like, is it like if we are doing something research that imitating the projects, is it unethical?
Well, it depends again. If it's a similar project, it might be no to them. But from my experience, what I did is that when I have a research assistant or my student who work with that particular project funded by the industry, you have her or him work with another project. Because she's or he being paid as a research assistant, so there's a project that concurrent but do not imitating the current project. I mean, maybe looking at the molecular level. Like for me, I'm an urban and molecular entomology, so I'm looking at the molecular level also. So that means that win-win situation. So they have the data information and it's discrete. You cannot publish, you cannot expose. But at the same time, also the student who work with the project, he or understand this project is separately different project and not her project. But at the same time, you do other project for her master PhD and you can publish and so on.
Okay. And one more thing is perhaps the winning situation that could belong to us is we managed to get the grant, the industrial grants, and perhaps in terms of consultation, as you said earlier, do not ask for money for the consultation. I mean, during the period of during the projects, so perhaps maybe is it possible that during the MOA signing or perhaps the NDA, whatever the documentations, we could have some clause to say that beside of the main project's agenda, so we can charge them for any consultation.
I think that's feasible. Need to check with the RCMO and the legal office. Usually, because I'm saying that we do want to be charged with our consultation, but early stage, we don't want to, because we want to get the engagement.
Yes.
So that means that, like for the first 3 times, maybe it's a free bono, but after that, maybe you can charge them. So that means because you want to win the heart and also to win the engagement. But later on stage, you can start when you have the research project and you can amend it and add in the consultation service and other things.
Perhaps one last question.
Sure.
How to get, being in terms of visibility, because as a new researcher, you are not well known as a good expert. And normally the industrial project is based on whatever problem that they're facing.
Yes, correct.
So it's not on our interest. They are not really care about our interest. They just want to solve their problems.
Correct.
So how to get highlighted or perhaps to get those projects?
Well, some feasibility that I did is that you go to their meetings and your workshop and introduce, and you present something that might be related to their funding. For example, I'm talking about the half-life of the termiticide. So that means that it's importantly for warranty and guarantee. But I'm not talking about their product, but some product have already been in the market, and we did this with I did this with my master student. So we have that data published. So you go there and present. So in the same time, they will know, oh, you are working with this particular problem. Because I've been approached, when that paper been published, there are one company called me. They said they want to do a similar things with their chemicals. So this is starting point. But it's not the project that been funded by industry. It was like your own pocket money, and you use the product that already have in the market, but different approach. Not just looking at the toxicity and of the product, but looking at the half-life and so on. So now they want that similar thing. So you need to get something that aside of their project funded, you need to something that might interest them. So that means that you need to be how to say it, sometimes it takes time. So once they start to invest, you can explore more.
Okay, thank you Dr. Hafiz.
Okay.
Okey, mungkin satu lagi soalan daripada para hadirin. Ada? Okey, kalau tiada soalan, kita akan meneruskan kepada seterusnya lah. Jadi para hadirin yang dihormati sekalian, sebagai tanda penghargaan, pihak Perpustakaan Universiti Sains Malaysia ingin menjemput Yang Berusaha Penerbitan Jan Muhammad, Timbalan Ketua Pustakawan, bagi menyampaikan cenderamah hati kepada penceramah kita.
Sini, depan. Okay.
Terima kasih banyak.
Okay, terima kasih. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih diucapkan kepada para hadiah di atas kesudian untuk menyempurnakan penyampaian cenderamah hati sebentar tadi. Dengan ini berakhirlah sudah sesi kita pada tengah hari ini. Sebelum kita bersurai, diminta semua hadirin untuk mengisi borang penilaian. Pihak kami juga ingin memohon maaf sepanjang mengendalikan sesi pada tengah hari ini. Sesungguhnya yang terbaik itu datangnya daripada Allah SWT dan yang kurang itu adalah daripada kelemahan kami sendiri. Jadi kepada para pensyarah, dijemput untuk ke ruang pameran buku bagi membuat pemilihan buku daripada pembekal terpilih. Dan kepada semua yang hadir, kami juga menawarkan pemotongan sebanyak 30% daripada denda perpustakaan. Para hadirin juga dijemput untuk menghadiri jamuan yang disediakan di Academic Lounge di tingkat 2. Dan untuk makluman, sesi terakhir program kita pada hari ini akan bermula pada pukul 2.30 petang nanti. Semua dijemput hadir. Jadi saya akhiri dengan ucapan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Doktor, maaf, kita terima last minute soalan daripada Facebook, daripada kita punya YouTube.
Oh, ada soalan?
Okey, soalan kita yang terakhir lah, last minute.
Masih lagi.
Daripada Lee Chi Kyong. Okay. First of all, he said, thank you for the sharing. I'm Lee from PPTI. My question is, what are the major problems or issue, if we have, that you face when working with industry? Okay. Okay. And the second thing, do you think do you work together with an existing industrial company to apply for a grant for government? If yes, how do you share the intellectual property?
Okay. First issue when working with the industry is the information that cannot be published out. So you need to be careful because that information, when you sign NDA and MOU and so on, it need to be kept secret because everything belong to them. So, and also because that particular issue sometimes because as an academic you want to have that information published. So that's the issue. And also some of the information also is belong to them. And if you want to share from a government, because I have a knowledge transfer project before KTP, and we need to have an industry partner. So that means they need also to sign together. So that means some of this information it can be shared. So that means that if you have MOU together, for example, like knowledge transfer program, grant, KTP, they also have to sign. So that means that this particular information, whatever we obtain, need to be delivered, need to be published, and need to be shared with the public. So that means if that, then it's okay. It's okay. So there's a lot of limitation actually.
Okay. With that, kita akan mengakhiri sesi kita lah. Jadi sekali lagi saya ingin menjemput para hadirin untuk menikmati jamuan di tingkat 2 Academic Lounge. Again, saya akhiri dengan ucapan wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Terima kasih.